It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha. Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee. Happy weekday, Brouhaha. All my best wishes coming your way, Dale.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm glad
What is the special occasion you're in such a good mood?
I'm in the process of overcoming.
Okay.
So I'm overcoming.
Okay.
I'm having a great day.
Okay.
A great mood.
Hey,
Everything's we talking sports.
Hey.
I've got your article in front of me, which I look forward to every week. The sideline view. I really do. You got quite a following of that thing, Dale.
I do.
I think you do.
I know my mama reads.
Well, I posted on a couple of Facebook pages, and I get a lot of, I see a lot of people liking it and stuff, and I talk to people around town and that I know that read it, and so, you're the real deal. You've been doing this a long time, haven't you?
Well,
You're a sports writer.
Yeah, I started in 1973. Is that a long time ago?
It is to me. I just wet behind the ears.
You probably weren't even born.
No, man. No, I'm.
But I do appreciate that, and
Yeah.
I kind of do it as just catch up on things as far as what happened last week in sports, what's going to happen this week.
Yeah.
It's just most of my audience is a weekly audience, like a weekly paper.
Right.
And so, that's who I'm gearing the article to. Okay, they don't get a lot of outside their local area sports in their paper.
Yeah.
So I take care of that for them, basically.
And that's a good service. I know they appreciate that. I just want to point that out. A lot of times, we lose sight of the fact, say familiarity. There's an old saying, you probably, not that I hold you in contempt, but there's an old saying, familiarity creates contempt. You ever heard that saying?
No, I hadn't.
Okay, well.
Until today.
You better watch out. You're really starting to make me mad.
That's like, did you go to law school?
No, familiarity breeds contempt. That's the saying. But what I wanted to deal is I don't want to be too familiar with you because we lose sight of the fact, and I'm just pointing this out, and I mean this. I respect people who write and can do that, and you are, we talk to sports writers and we talk to sports figures, but you are a sports writer, and you've been doing that 40 something years, so you're the real deal. We're thankful to have you, Dale. Sure. Let's take a quick look at your sideline view this week. I know you're looking at the football stuff. It's kicking up. Media days are going on, the SEC. That's a big deal. I'm looking at this Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame class down here, and I'm looking right here, and I see a guy, that we interviewed, that you lined up for us. Barry Lyons, yes sir. He's being inducted into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. You want to talk to us about the other inductees? And
well, they have 8 total. They've got a couple of football coaches, and Bob Tyler, the former Mississippi State head coach. Also, Willis Wright, a great high school coach from South Panola.
Oh man! And
so they're going in. Kermit Davis Sr., who is Kermit Davis Jr.'s dad at Ole Miss. Kermit Jr. is the head basketball coach at Ole Miss. His dad, who was the head basketball coach at Mississippi State, is also going in for his coaching deal.
That's an interesting deal right there. Yeah. Head coach at State, head coach at Ole Miss, both of them Hall of Famers. Man, that's a big. That family's they doing it big, aren't they?
That's right. David DeLucia, who played at Ole Miss and went on and had a 15-year career in the major leagues. He's on SEC Network now, covering the baseball for them. They've got a great golfer, Jim Gallagher Jr. He's from up around Greenville or Greenwood. I'm not really sure, but he's played on the tour and everything like that. And then we have Maggie Bowen Hanna, who's going in swimming. So those are your 8 inductees. Oh, and Eric Moles, who played wide receiver for Mississippi State and Buffalo, and he's from down the road at Loosedale there.
Well, he's a good one. Wasn't
He was.
Oh my goodness.
He was outstanding.
He had an outstanding professional career too.
Yes, sir. He did. He did. So I'm gonna try to go up that weekend and meet some of them that I haven't met before, and maybe make some contact. May have some on the show.
Well, you can't even tell. I tell you what, I know one thing. If they can be got, you can get them, brother. You've proven that. Well, look, let's talk a little bit about today's show. We're going, coming up. Who you got for us? Tell us about our guest today, Dale, and what we'll be talking about.
We have a longtime sportscaster from Meridian, WTOK, Channel 11 in Meridian, Lindsey Hall. And Lindsey and I have had a great relationship over the years, and he has now kind of steered his way out of sports and got into the news part of it, but he keeps up with sports.
Yeah.
So,
it's in his blood.
So we're going to talk to him, and we're going to talk to him a lot about SEC Media Days.
Okay.
And some of the stories that he's got to tell about it.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, let's don't waste any time. Let's take a break and hear from our sponsor, and let's get on back here with Lindsey. But first, a word from our sponsors, then Dale, Lindsey, and myself. I'll be back for the following segment of the Brouhaha. See you after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Lindsey Hall. How's everything in Meridian today?
Yeah, man, we are doing fantastic here. So good to hear your voice, man. I see you every day in print, and I see your face. Matter of fact, literally 5 minutes ago, I just posted your weekly column on our Facebook and on our website.
Hey, I always appreciate you doing that for me, and I hope it's interesting to some of the viewers there. Well, listen.
It is. It is.
Okay. Well, let's talk about sports a little bit here. As far as what's going on in Atlanta this week, why don't you kind of tell us what you think is going to go on over there this week at the SEC Media Days?
Dale, you've been to as many as probably more than 95% of the guys over there. You and I probably. I would, if we had to count them up, Dale, I'm thinking you and I have probably been to 60 or more combined, maybe more than that.
I think you got me beaten on that because I usually just went to the I usually just went to the football, and I'd say I'm around 20. I remember way back when I believe Ray Goff was in his first year coaching at Georgia was my first one, and that was a long time ago.
Ooh.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I remember when
I started going, and I have not been to one in quite a while, several years probably, but I can remember I barely missed the old Skyriders tour. I almost, I almost got in on the tail end of that. My first SEC Media Days were 1984, 84. That's my first year working in the sports business. I was in Tuscaloosa, so I think I went to about almost 30 straight, something in that number, and they were, I think, all in Birmingham then, and a lot of nothing really helps. Happens. We do come away with some stories, but typically it's vanilla. You do have some of those years where, the infamous no-show by Philip Fulmer, when he was in a battle with Alabama recruiting, and, you had a bunch of cameras, focused in on a microphone when he no-showed. But, typically it's not a lot of big stories. The big story that came out today a couple of while ago is that Bush Beans is now the official sponsor of the SEC as far as beans are concerned. But, it's normally not a lot of headline stories come out.
Yeah, they kind of keep it close to the vest. I remember the year Arkansas and South Carolina came in, and I thought, that was a pretty big deal. And I remember Roy Kramer saying, I think at that year when the SEC expanded for the first time, I believe that was, 92, somewhere in there.
Yes, that's when they came in. Yeah.
Yeah, he said
And
one day we'll have a 64-team super conference, and it's like 30 years before it's really going to happen. And the thing about it, and I've told people before, especially on this show, that we worried about how Ole Miss and State were going to stay in that super conference. Well, we were worried that they'd be left out, that the SEC would just take the cream of their crop and go, and everybody else would be left behind. But Ole Miss and State seem to be in pretty good shape, and old poor Rutgers up there in Maryland, I think they're doing a lot better than Oregon and Oregon State and Washington State, which surprises me a little bit,
I do too, Dale. I think maybe your biggest news is this morning when the commissioner comes up and gives his kind of State of the League address, which Commissioner Sankey did already this morning. He pretty much. The news coming out today, which I just happened to take a sneak peek, was he said, "Hey, we're going to kind of hold back on all this expansion talk for the time being." He said we're fine with Texas and Oklahoma and all this other stuff that you've been hearing with Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina. He said we're going to put a hold on it for the time being. So I think you're going to see the SEC hold pat now for a while. Doesn't mean it won't happen for a while, but I think that's the biggest news that you're going to see out of the SEC, and it's media days. The 4 days of it has already occurred with Sankey saying, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and put the squash on this expansion talk right now."
Well, do you think is there a timetable? Do you think that maybe they'll go to this? Do you think they're waiting for the 2025 deal where the new college playoff will maybe be in effect then? Because I think this contract only runs through, 2024? Do you think there'll be a lot of movement?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think when you're looking at what is it, Dale? I think most everybody's thinking now you're going to, with 2 or 3 super conferences, with the Big Ten and maybe the SEC, and we may be looking at college football, with what you and I certainly grew up with, that we may not recognize. We may see a couple of maybe just 2 super conferences somewhere down the road 10 years from now, and they may not even be a part of the NCAA. You may have 2 22-team super conferences, and they just play their seasons, and then maybe 6 or 8 teams from each of those conferences make the playoffs, and they have their own playoff and crown their own champion, and maybe they pull out the NCAA. So we're with the NIL now and with all that, I think we're headed to a day that we don't even recognize. We're still going to have our rivalries. We're still going to have Ole Miss and State and Bama and Auburn and all that, but I think the landscape certainly changed. You're talking USC and UCLA in the Big Ten. That doesn't hardly make sense to me.
Lindsey, this is Marshall. I want to throw something in here from a question concerning Notre Dame. From what I read, everybody's made these moves. We've had the big moves in the SEC, the Big Ten. You just mentioned about that, and Notre Dame is sitting up there in the heart of that country. And it seems like from what I read, everybody's saying, well, they're kind of waiting to see what Notre Dame wants to do, and how big an impact do you think the Fighting Irish could have on continued realignment prospects? Are they going to make a big ripple in this lake somewhere, do you think?
Oh, they're the biggest. First of all, Marshall, I hope Dale is paying you handsomely to be a sidekick.
he makes it worth my while, I can assure you.
Well, I hope so. But I think that's the one big chip that everybody's waiting for, and then the dominoes will fall where they're going to fall. And I think Dale mentioned something. It's the Washington States, the Oregon States, the Texas Techs of the world that's going to be left out.
Yeah.
And but Notre Dame is just so interesting because they've got they've got the higher academic standards too, which hurt them.
Yeah.
And the SEC and some of these other conferences that don't have those academic standards that Notre Dame have, and which ultimately hurt them. But they've got the fan base, they've got the national appeal, they've got the TV. So I do think they end up in the Big Ten though, because I mean, can you imagine? I mean, you've got then you've got a Rose Bowl happening almost every other week if you've got Notre Dame in the Big Ten. I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah. Exciting times. I guess it's fun to talk about where it's going to go now. I'm going to come in here and throw a big change up here and kind of reel back into Mississippi. I read an article the past couple of days. It might have been this morning. Everything runs together on Jackson State and Coach Prime talking about the fact that they're considering some realignments. And, his comments was everybody's chasing the bag, which we know what that means. It's the dollar bill that's driving it all now. We look at Jackson State. We look at HBCUs. Do you think they're gonna? They've been in the SWAC since what, '58, and do you think there's a prospect that some of the historically HBCUs might gravitate to some other conferences, trying to maybe put themselves in a position to get a little more TV money? Do you think that's something that's going to happen right away?
I wouldn't doubt it. Anything's possible. Yeah. I mean, because when you look at what Deion has done to Jackson State, I mean, it's unbelievable. Look at this past weekend. Did you see who he had at his camp?
I did not.
The Rock.
Oh, the Rock. Right. Oh, that's right. He knows how to make it. He's throwing Rock in the pond, isn't he?
I mean, is that unbelievable? I mean, he had, only one of the biggest, global stars there is, from wrestling and now his days in Hollywood. He had The Rock at Jackson State this past weekend. We ran a story on it. I mean, I can see Jackson State and Valley and in a conference, maybe even Southern Miss in that same conference when you start talking about it. That may happen. I talk to people about the SWAC all the time. When I moved from Alabama, I'm an Alabama guy, but I've been over Mississippi a long time. But when you realize the players that have come out of the SWAC, and that's what they're trying to recognize now. They're trying to get these scouts to start looking at the SWAC again. I mean, arguably one of your best runners and the rushers in the history of the NFL, Walter Payton, Jackson State, the best receiver in the history of the NFL ever, Jerry Rice, Mississippi Valley State. I mean,
Steve McNair. Alcorn, Steve
McNair, Alcorn State. Yeah. I mean, these guys can play. Jackie Slater, one of the greatest, a friend of mine, I've known Jackie a long time, one of the greatest offensive linemen in the history of the game, Jackson State. So these guys can play. And that's kind of the whole focal point now of Deion, and he's saying, look at us, we can play, and they play some pretty good balls. But that is interesting point because they're all on shoestring budgets, and that includes Southern Miss too.
Oh yeah. Jackson State's got more NFL Hall of Famers than any of the universities or colleges in the state of Mississippi. But you know what? And you can correct me.
That's unbelievable. Yeah.
You can correct me too. If you look at their attendance, what Jackson State's attendance is, I think they're averaging around 45,000 a game now. That's pretty good. I mean, Southern Mississippi, I'm a big Southern Miss fan. I'm a Southern grad, and I love the Golden Eagles, but, we don't do that down in Hattiesburg in the football arena, for sure. I mean, he's got it happening.
I think it will help a little bit with Southern Miss now that they're in the new conference because they've got some kind of natural regional rivals. It almost goes back to the conference, or the old Metro. What was that, Dale? The old Metro days when they had, but they're going to have some more natural regional rivals. So I think it's going to help them. So, as a matter of fact, last year, and it's because Memorial Stadium's bigger, but the Jackson State Alcorn game last year had more people in the stands than the Egg Bowl. Now that's because the Memorial Stadium's bigger than both the campus stadiums, but that's unbelievable. Jackson State and Alcorn drew 60,000 last year.
Well,
can y'all believe that? I mean, that's unreal.
Oh no, we've been keeping up with that attendance. We had Ashley Robinson, the AD, on, and he was explaining to us, the process of getting Deion over there, and a lot of people thought it was a gimmick at first, but Ashley knew what might transpire if he gets a name like a Dion. And now some of the others, followed it, like at Tennessee State and Grambling with their hires. And I'm sure there's more that's going to follow, but that isn't interesting. But let me ask you about TV, since you're real familiar with that. I remember when Southern Miss was at its highlight, especially during its basketball in the 80s, when they went to the NIT and everything. Every Saturday there
MK Turk.
Yep.
MK Turk.
Every Saturday there would be a basketball game, the Metro Conference game of the week. I didn't care who it was. If it was Virginia Tech playing Louisville, I was watching it because I knew all of their starters just about like I did the USM starters. But USM doesn't seem that. I think that TV contract stuff has really hurt them over the years. Especially lately, because there's not a whole lot of games, and when they're on channels that you have to pay for, and a lot of people don't, especially a lot of older people, they're not on Direct TV or Dish or ever what it is. So what kind of effect does TV have, do you think?
Yeah, I think the term has become so watered down now. You're right. I mean, you've got to search. I mean, even the NASCAR race yesterday, which is a huge event, NASCAR is prime time. It's on USA Channel. I'm going, why? The USA. But you're right. It's, unless you're one of the top powerhouses, you're right. Sometimes you can search, 300 channels over and find, sporting events on channels you wouldn't think are they're sporting events on non-sports channels. You know what I mean? And it's unreal, but it's so watered down now. You're right, and it is. You've almost got to be one of the big guys to be seen these days, or you play on Tuesday nights, and that's not good for fan bases. Nobody wants to go to ball games on Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights and things like that. To me, anyway.
Yeah, well, that's the way most people are. When they have a Friday night game, that just disturbs me so much. Because you're taken away from high school football, basically.
Yeah.
Especially if you.
Or nobody. I don't know about you guys, but as you get older, particularly when we go to bed at 9 o'clock, like we do now. 10 o'clock. The dreaded 8 and 9 o'clock kicks on a Saturday night. Good gracious.
Yeah.
I can't stay up that late.
No, I can't.
Much less deadlines. Used to, Dale. We used to worry about deadlines. Now
I
worry about
deadlines. I remember them 11 o'clock deadlines on Saturday night, and somebody's still playing. And
and now I'm not worried about deadline as much as I am. I'm not going to get 4 hours of sleep. I got to get in bed early.
Yeah. The only time I stayed up late was when help me with the name. The kid from Brandon was playing quarterback for Leach at Washington State.
Gardner Minshew.
So I stayed up for Washington State.
The mustache.
Yeah, I stayed up for Washington State.
The mustache.
Yeah, and so I just enjoyed, and of course I enjoyed Leach's offense at that time too, and I thought he's done a pretty good job everywhere he's been. I think he's going to meet his. I don't know if he's going to meet his match, but he's got some good defenses to go up against in the SEC for sure over the next few years. But tell me about Leach, because I know you kind of cover a lot of Mississippi State in the past, because it's a lot closer to you than most of your colleges. What about Leach and the program for Mississippi State in the future?
He's won everywhere he's been. He's got a proven track record. Of course, he's never coached the SEC before. They're gonna move the ball up and down the field, no doubt about that. Now, a lot of people think they're going to do well. He's got a brutal schedule this year. Anytime you play in the SEC West, you've got to play the gauntlet. You've got to play Alabama, LSU, A&M, Auburn, Arkansas, Ole Miss. Good luck with those 6. And then, by the way, as a crossover game in the East this year, you get Georgia. It's tough. But, but they're going to move the ball. And it's hard. Now, personality-wise, it's just, you show up at a press conference of his, you really have no idea what he's going to say or what he's going to talk about. I don't know if he knows or not what he's going to talk about, but they're very, very entertaining, and they're fun games to go to. I know that much because they're going to throw the ball 60, 70, 80 times. Sometimes you scratch your head because it seems like one week they're beating a team that they're not supposed to, and then the next week they're losing to somebody that they're not supposed to. But a lot of people are actually high on these guys. I'm going to be very interested, guys, to see what the preseason poll looks like. Normally, and Dale, you know this, normally very little respect is given to the Mississippi teams. I'm going to be very interested, though, because Lane Kiffin, they're coming off a 10-win season, and that rarely happens because I think Auburn's down. I'm not sure LSU's back. Arkansas, were they a one-and-done type deal? I don't know, but I'm going to see very, very interested to see what kind of respect the Mississippi State teams and Ole Miss gets. A lot of people think State could be kind of that sneaky team. I don't know. I think when the poll comes out, we're going to see Mississippi State still pick 6. I think they're going to be a little bit better this year, but it's just a killer schedule this year. If they can find 7 wins off that schedule, I think they've got Memphis too this year, and that's not a walk in the park.
Well, they got the second best team in the East too in Kentucky, I think. On
I mean, good gracious! I mean, they could be a vastly improved team this year. And I'm not looking at their schedule now, but don't they have Memphis or?
Yeah, Memphis.
I don't
Arizona, and don't they go to Arizona or somewhere out that way?
Yes, in Arizona, they don't do the return to NC State for another year, but it's like, that's brutal. I mean, they could be much improved and still be in 6-6 this year. So, I personally like Leach. I think he's going to be at the Neshoba Fair next week. I don't think Kiffin's coming, but I think Leach is going to be there.
Well, he'd be worth the price of admission if they charge.
Oh,
what a great environment!
I will tell you. Oh, he gets on these tangents, and you really sometimes can't figure out what he's talking about.
Yeah.
You really can't. But he's okay. I mean, the guy has won, and it's usually in that second year. He took over at Washington State when they were dismal. And won. He's won everywhere he's been, and I think he's going to be okay there. I mean, will he win an SEC or national championship there at State? Probably not. But I think you're going to get 7-8 wins out of them every year. When you're playing in that conference,
that's pretty good.
Alabama, LSU, A&M, LSU, Arkansas, and Auburn. That's not that bad.
Well, listen, guys, I got to step up in here and blow the horn on us a little bit. Like I told you earlier, one thing, my job is to let us know where we are on time, Lindsey, and we appreciate you so much being with us today, and hopefully maybe we can do it again sometime.
Man, look, I had a great night. I don't get to talk sports as much as I used to, so I really, really enjoyed this.
Hang on with us just a minute. Lindsey. I'm going to just little close out right here, folks. Y'all just hold on. Dale and I are going to take a break, and we'll be back with the final segment of the Brouhaha after this word from our sponsors.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everyone, for our final segment tonight. Really enjoyed visiting with Lindsey. That was a treat, Dale.
Well, yeah, like I said, he's a long-time sports announcer up there. Lord, he was there forever. I couldn't tell you how many years, but, he's still working for TOK, but he started probably in the early 80s up there and things like that.
We appreciate him being with us, but I want to back up in our final segment. We started talking about your sideline view, and there's a couple of things in here we didn't get to mention that I'd like to talk about as we wrap up tonight. Tell us about what some of the Rebels and let's say have been up to since winning the College World Series. What's been going on? I see you got a little segment on there about some Team USA stuff. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we had 3 representatives from Mississippi as far as players on the USA team for the it was called Team USA, and they played an international baseball tournament in the Netherlands. And I think they finished. They got the bronze medal, and so they had they played teams like Japan and Cuba and teams like that are pretty talented. Pretty good. And ours was basically a college team of players that were not eligible for the draft.
Oh, okay.
And so Ole Miss had Hunter Elliott, the pitcher, and they had shortstop Jacob Gonzalez. And Jacob hit about 250 during the tournament, and Hunter made a couple appearances and had a great ERA of 1.31, which is fantastic. Had a player from Southern Miss, Tanner Hall, their starting Friday night pitcher. Heard Scott Berry talk about him last week, and a lot of people compare him to Greg Maddox as far as his location stuff. And he won his only pitching start. And Mike Bianco, the head coach for the Rebels, was the manager of the team.
Oh, okay. Well, Mississippi's going global, around the world with baseball. Isn't that something? I guess Mississippi is kind of like the college baseball capital of the world right now with back-to-back national champions.
What's going to happen if Southern Miss wins?
Oh, man. Like Casey Fisher said when they won that NIT tournament, he said, we came, we saw, we tore the house down, man. That's what's going to happen. Let's wrap this thing up with one more deal. I understand that we're talking about baseball and the 2022 Baseball National Championship Trophy goes on tour. Tell us about that. So some of you fans that like to see sports history in person might not have made it to Omaha. You might get a chance to look at the trophy and to see what a national championship baseball trophy, NCAA championship trophy looks like. Tell us about the tour, where they're going to be and how that works, Dale.
Well, they're going to start it next Monday, and of course it'll be in the Memphis area next Monday. And then they're going to trick on down to, I believe it's the Tupelo, Olive Branch area, Greenwood, and then they're going to kind of hit central Mississippi, going to Philadelphia to the fair, and they're going to go to the fair, and then they're going to go to the resort.
Oh, okay.
To the resort over there. And then they're going to go to the coast, to Gulfport and Biloxi. And it's interesting, on that Friday, I believe it's Friday the 29th, the Biloxi Suckers are having a game that night, and they're going to show the trophy at the ball game. You can go up and get a picture made with it. And I've been told that they're going to get out some national championship posters too.
Okay.
Why supplies last? You know that word, supplies last.
Yeah.
And so then after that, they're going to come up the next day to Hattiesburg. They're going to end it up around Brandon. And then they're going to go back to Oxford. But
who's actually carrying this trophy around?
I assume it's some of the Ole Miss people that work at the school there, or something like that. I don't think it'd be any of the players, but I mean, one of them, two of them might show up, for autographs, things like that. But I think it's great. I think Mississippi State did it last year. I think they've already showed the trophy one time at a Mississippi Braves game. So
good stuff, man. Lots of exciting things happen in Mississippi sports from at every level.
Yeah, and we need to tell everybody about tonight's All-Star game. We're going to have a couple of Mississippians in it. Austin Riley from DeSoto Central. And of course, he's Atlanta Braves third baseman. Got 27 home runs at All-Star break.
Knock them out.
That's pretty good, And then they've got I think it's Tim Anderson. He played at East Central Junior College. He's a shortstop for the American League. He plays with the White Sox. He's a great player for them. And then we even got an umpire in the game, Lance Barksdale, going umpire first base. He's from Brookhaven.
Gonna call it like you
know how them Brookhaven referees are.
Oh boy,
you've seen them Brookhaven referees in action. So we'll see how that goes.
Oh man, how quickly we digress. But for now, folks, we're out of time. So we thank you for being with us. We want to let you know and remind you that you can follow us during the week on Facebook at the Brouhaha, and you can see some of our historical presentations of our show on our YouTube channel at the Brouhaha. But for now, it's come to that time where we got to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week, same Brouhaha time, same Brouhaha channel for more of, you guessed it, the Brouhaha. Take us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.